In 1966, a television producer named Joan Ganz Cooney hosted a dinner party at her apartment in New York City. One of her guests raised a question. Could television be used to teach young children? 3 years later, Sesame Street was on the air. It has been running every single day since November 10, 1969. The longest-running children's program in American television history, Joan Ganz was born on November 30, 1929, in Phoenix, Arizona. She earned a degree in education from the University of Arizona in 1951, worked briefly at the State Department in Washington, D.C., then returned to Phoenix as a reporter for the Arizona Republic, with no prior journalism experience. In 1953, she moved to New York, spending a decade in public relations at RCA, NBC, and CBS. Then a colleague left to work at an educational television station, and Cooney had what she later described as a moment of clarity. "I knew," she said, "that I was born to be in educational television." In 1961, she joined WNET, New York's first educational TV station, as a documentary producer. She won Emmy Awards, built a reputation, and noticed something that troubled her deeply. By the late 1960s, 97% of American households owned a television. Preschool children were watching an average of 27 hours of television every week, and almost none of it was teaching them anything. She also noticed something else. Children across America could sing advertising jingles perfectly from memory. Television had proven it could teach children anything it wanted to. No one had aimed that power at learning. In 1966, Cooney hosted a small dinner party near Gramercy Park. One of her guests was Lloyd Morissette, vice president of the Carnegie Corporation, who raised the idea of using television to give disadvantaged preschoolers a head start before they entered school. Cooney had been thinking the same thing. Carnegie funded Cooney to spend several months in 1967 traveling the United States and Canada, interviewing experts in child development, education, and television. The result was a 55-page report, a detailed blueprint for what would become Sesame Street, including its format, curriculum goals, and the nonprofit structure needed to produce it. Morissette raised the money from Carnegie, the Ford Foundation, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and the U.S. federal government. The total, $8 million. The Children's Television Workshop was formally established in 1968. Some questioned whether Cooney had the management experience for the role. Others questioned whether a woman could lead a project of this scale. Cooney was named the CTW's first executive director in February 1968. Her appointment was called one of the most important television developments of the decade. She was one of the first female executives in American television. Cooney's approach to building Sesame Street was unprecedented in children's television. She insisted on combining television production with child development research. At the time, as she put it, positively heretical. Harvard professor Gerald S. Lesser led curriculum planning seminars with producers and child development experts, the first time a children's show had ever been built around a structured, measurable curriculum. The format borrowed deliberately from what television already did well: the fast pace of commercials, the visual energy of shows like Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. If those techniques could sell children cereal and toys, the same techniques could sell them the alphabet. Jim Henson and the Muppets joined after Henson met Cooney at one of the curriculum seminars. The characters were not incidental to the show. They were the curriculum. Oscar the Grouch was designed to help children process negative emotions. Big Bird was created to be wrong, so children could correct him. Every Muppet served a specific educational purpose. The cast was racially integrated from the very first episode, a deliberate choice Cooney considered non-negotiable. Teaching children to read was not more important than teaching them to respect people who looked different from themselves. Sesame Street premiered on PBS on November 10, 1969. By January 1970, over 5 million households were tuning in. Remarkable, given that broadcast technology meant roughly 1/3 of Americans couldn't even receive the signal at all. In its first season, the show won 3 Emmy Awards and a Peabody Award, and appeared on the cover of Time magazine. The television critic for Variety called Cooney St. Joan. Not everyone was pleased. In May 1970, Mississippi's State Educational Television Commission voted to refuse to air the show, citing its racially integrated cast. The ban became a national story and was eventually reversed. The growth continued. By 1979, 9 million American children under 6 were watching Sesame Street daily. By 1993, 77% of all U.S. preschoolers were watching at least once a week, 88% among low-income families. A 1996 survey found that by age 3, 95% of American children had watched Sesame Street. Today, the show has won 227 Emmy Awards, more than any other series in television history. It reaches 156 million children in more than 150 countries, and it has been running every single day since that first broadcast. Cooney said it plainly. Without research, there would be no Sesame Street. The evidence has confirmed her for 50 years. A landmark 2015 University of Maryland study examined children who had access to Sesame Street in 1969 versus those who didn't. The difference determined by broadcast technology, not choice. Children who could watch were 14% more likely to be in the appropriate grade for their age in middle and high school, and 30 to 50% less likely to fall behind grade level. The largest gains went to Black, Hispanic, and low-income children, precisely the children Cooney had set out to reach. A University of Wisconsin meta-analysis of 24 studies across 15 countries found an average 11.6 percentile improvement in viewers versus non-viewers, comparable to intensive in-person preschool programs, but delivered at a fraction of the cost. By 2001, there were over 1,000 research studies on Sesame Street. It is the most researched television program in history. Cooney's insistence that research drive production was the single most important decision she made. Harold Evans placed Cooney in They Made America because she did something that defines the great American democratizers. In 1969, formal preschool was largely unavailable to poor families. Children from disadvantaged backgrounds arrived at kindergarten already behind. Cooney designed Sesame Street to close that gap, using the one technology that 97% of American households already had, to deliver the same quality of early education that wealthy families could buy. The evidence confirmed it. The largest gains went to exactly the children she had targeted, $8 million, and the show has run every day for 55 years. Shortly after the premiere, producers and educators from other countries came calling. Cooney said she was shocked. She'd thought Sesame Street was very American. Instead, the CTW developed a co-production model. Each country built its own version with its own characters and curriculum. International co-productions have addressed HIV/AIDS education in South Africa, post-conflict trauma in Kosovo and Afghanistan, and girls' education in Pakistan and India. Today, Sesame Street is the single largest informal educator on Earth. 3 lessons from Joan Ganz Cooney's story. First, use the medium's strengths. Don't fight them. Cooney didn't try to make television more like a textbook. She made education more like television. Meeting your audience where they are, not where you wish they were, is how you reach them. Second, research before you build. Cooney spent a full year conducting research before a single frame was filmed. She designed the curriculum before the entertainment and tested every segment with real children before it aired. The discipline to think before building is what made the show work, and has kept it working for 55 years. Third, aim at the underserved and everyone benefits. Sesame Street was built for disadvantaged inner-city children. It reached them, and then it reached 95% of all American children. Designing for the least served often produces the most universal solutions. The child with the least access benefits most, and everyone else benefits too. She asked a simple question at a dinner party in 1966. The answer has educated hundreds of millions of children across 55 years and more than 150 countries. It has won 227 Emmy Awards. It reaches 156 million children globally, and it has run every day since November 10, 1969. It began with a question: could television teach children? The answer was yes. Thank you for joining us for episode 16. Our next episode is Ted Turner, the man who invented 24-hour news and proved that television didn't have to stop when you went to sleep. Until then, stay curious,